floor is yours.
All right, welcome and thank you for coming to my session. Today's session is called Top 10 Reasons for Depositing Research Data with DSDR. Those of you who remember the Letterman show with their top 10 lists, this is modeled on this, top 10 list for depositing with us. So to start with the first thing, we want to just remind people that DSDR is a project at ICPSR. It's one of the topical archives.
Really quick, sorry, John, to interrupt. We're still on the, you need to put it on the presentation mode.
I need to go to presentation mode? Can you not see my slide?
We're seeing the notes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I know, after we got it all fixed and everything. You had it perfect. Sorry about this, everybody.
No, sorry.
Oh, it's not your fault.
What are you seeing?
Probably not what you want us to see. Oh, why don't you click? I see a button up near the top left that says resume slideshow. Do you see that?
Resume share.
Yeah, click on that. Let's see what happens. There we go. Perfect. Thank you.
So you can see the slides now?
Yep, it's exactly what you wanted.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, let me see. I got to bring up my well, that's interesting. Okay. Hang on. Little technical glitches.
One of those cameo moments that we were talking about.
Okay, do you still see the right slides?
Yep, it looks gorgeous.
Okay, great. All right. So as I said, a top 10 list, a little bit about DSDR at ICPSR. Data sharing for demographic research, DSDR is a topical archive at ICPSR. DSDR is funded by the Eunice Kennedy Shriver National Institute for Child Health and Human Development, NICHD. And DSDR data focus on maternal and child health disparities in the human life cycle. Also, a little plug here is that how at DSDR we characterize research data as information producing aggregate results such as summary statistics and regression coefficients. These aggregate results must meet disclosure protection thresholds for cell sizes, tables, sample sizes for regressions, and other specified conditions such as the suppression of certain variables or disallowed subsamples. Although research data may contain information about individuals and organizations, research data are not intended for identifying individuals or organizations. And this is very important. The data are not intended for finding individuals or organizations. So let's start our list. All right, so here's the first thing on the list. The big thing is, as we like to say, is add to a big pile of data. DSDR has over 900 studies with over 1.2 million variables in the collection. Keep in mind, that's only a subset of ICPSR, which has over 80,000 studies and over 6 million variables. We enable researchers to search through this big pile to find the data that addresses their research question. So it may be a big pile to you, but to us, it's what we do. Download statistics. Everybody loves download statistics. You can see how researchers are downloading your data, how many researchers. You can see trends over time. These statistics are ideal for grant renewals, or if you just want to see how popular you are. We have a current study that the depositor has been regularly getting on to see who's downloading the data, how many are downloading the data. So you get the thrill in seeing that your counts are going up. Data guides. Data guides are supplemental documentation in addition to code books or data dictionaries. DSDR likes to make these available to help people overcome humps in data. The data guides show how to link waves of data and apply appropriate weights. The guides are typically there to answer a lot of frequently asked questions about the data. It's a way of supplementing the documentation that goes beyond just the code book. The bibliography. One of the secret weapons of ICPSR and DSDR is our bibliography, which we are really proud of, and our librarians do a tremendous job here. The DSDR bibliography has over 41,000 entries. These are entries of work done with the data in DSDR. ICPSR, for the whole, has over 100,000. The bibliography enables researchers to easily find publications that analyze the data. One of our values, and this is important, is that We believe that science builds on science, so knowing what other people have done is really important. Data depositors can see how many publications that their data are generating. Our librarians check extensive sources in addition to PubMed, and that's one of the things that makes our bibliography special. We don't just confine it to PubMed, we do studies beyond just PubMed. Data exploration via online analysis. Number 6, many DSDR studies have online analysis capability. Through online analysis, researchers can explore to see if data are appropriate to their analysis. With the online analysis tool, researchers can examine preliminary tables before downloading the data. Gives them a chance to actually take a peek inside the data. And that's what we all like to do. We like to peek inside things before we download them. Number 5, disclosure risk assessment. The protection of human subjects is a top priority for DSDR. In addition to direct identifiers such as personal health information, we also check data for deductive disclosure risk. Public access data must be stripped of direct identifiers and have negligible risk of inferential re-identification. Restricted data can have a risk of inferential identification, but more on that in the next slide. So number 4, we offer tiered access to research data, which is we can manage many different ways of people getting access to the data. Access to research data requires multiple tiers since data may still contain sensitive information or disclosure risk. These access tiers balance researcher access with appropriate protections. As needed, the tiers add more security layers and checks on researcher compliance with protocols. 2 examples are external vetting of output in addition to the researcher's self-review to make sure that it complies with cell size requirements and minimum subsamples, and blocked internet to prevent researchers from inadvertently copying data to non-approved places. And as you go up the stairs, all the way up to the highest level, which is we call batch, the protections get stronger and stronger. I want to note here that what's important here is that in all cases, the data that you have, as I said before, are only used for to create summary information. At no time should data be used to try to identify an individual. And that concerns all the way from public unrestricted, all the way up to the highest levels of restricted data. The difference is that with each of these tiers, we have more protections to make sure that there's compliance. ICPSR and FAIR, okay? I love FAIR. We're very much a FAIR place. ICPSR adheres to the FAIR principles. This is very important when we're thinking about, when you're thinking about where to put your data, making sure that it goes into a repository that follows the FAIR principles. The FAIR principles are findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. The FAIR principles are a minimum standard for any research data repository. At ICPSR and DSDR, FAIR is a baseline in which to build our data archive. ICPSR also has been certified with the Core Trust Seal. So when you give your data to DSDR and also to ICPSR, you're giving it to an organization that not only adheres to the highest standards, but has been certified to those highest standards. Make your research data discoverable through DSDR. Discoverable is a new buzzword that you'll see a lot now. Discoverable builds on the findable principle and the FAIR principles. In addition to persistent interoperable identifiers for all studies, such as DOIs, researchers can search for data by topic, study name, or variables in the study. Our variables database, which is very important, allows people to peek inside data, to search within data to find, does this data have the information I'm interested in? And what other data have that same information? ICPSR's study search function enables researchers to compare variables across studies. Our search function is absolutely vital in terms of discoverability. Discoverability is your ability to find data in context. It's your ability to look for data, not just by name or knowing what the URL is, but being able to say, I'm interested in data on this particular topic, on this particular research question. And the number one reason for depositing data with DSDR is conform to NIH data sharing requirements. Okay. NIH and NICHD require research data to be shared for replication and secondary analysis. By including DSDR in your data management and sharing plans, you will meet requirements for data sharing. This is vital. All grants to NIH after 2023 must have a data sharing and management plan and must be approved by your program officer. This is separate from grant review. You must have that. We are one way to help you do that. So, last thing is contact DSDR. You want to subscribe to the DSDR news for the latest updates. And we're on Facebook and we're on Twitter. And I want to say, give a shout out to the DSDR team, to Sarah Rush, the project manager, and Kelly Ogden-Schutte, who do a super job of keeping DSDR's presence on social media up to date. And Kelly is absolutely superb at user support. She's the person you'll probably talk to when you contact us. So thank you for listening. And that was quick, and I hope you enjoyed the list.
All right, thank you very much, John. That was fantastic. So now, if anybody has any questions or comments, please feel free to put them in. You can use the Q&A box at the bottom of your video screen. And we will see if anybody has any questions. In the meantime, so John, you mentioned that, so you have an email address, you have a website, you have Facebook and Twitter. If somebody heard all of this and was like, oh, I want to stay in touch, I want to find out the new things that DSDR is doing, how can they do that?
Come to our site, subscribe to our newsletter.
Okay, that sounds good.
We do have a newsletter. Our newsletter, please subscribe to our newsletter, because that has more detail than just tweets. Our tweets, which are superb, are often passing out information. We will retweet what NIH has put out, sometimes what ICPSR has put out, to make sure our community is aware of it. But our newsletter is, if you haven't subscribed to our newsletter, subscribe.
Okay, sounds like the newsletter is a good way to go. So if somebody wanted to deposit data with you, you gave us a list of the top 10 reasons for doing so. Mm-hmm. And you have now convinced me that I should deposit my data with you. What would be the first step in that?
Okay, the first thing is often people will send us an email inquiring about depositing the data. But then we will direct them, if they have any questions to start with, to the deposit system at ICPSR. And when you deposit with ICPSR, you can select DSDR as the topical archive to deposit with. One thing we ask is, when people deposit data, is that they work with us. They don't just deposit it and then walk away. We want to review your data. We might have questions. We want to collaborate with you. One thing that's important here, that's slightly different than ICPSR, DSDR does not change any data without telling the depositor. We work with the depositor to make sure that they're aware of recommendations. So if we find disclosure risk and we make recommendations, we will submit those to you and ask you to review them before making those changes. Now, that's just to make sure that we're all on the same page, that we haven't gutted something important and that we haven't changed the data without your review. But we work very much in partnership with the depositor.
Well, thank you very much. It looks like we got a question here. It says, if my data are already available for download somewhere else, can I still make them available through DSDR?
Well, typically we don't operate quite that way. If it's already available somewhere else, what we like to do is we like to make a catalog entry so that the data are discoverable through DSDR, and then we would direct them to where they can be downloaded from the original site. So we're very much involved with trying to make sure that people can discover data. So even if we don't have the data in the DSDR repository, we can put it in our catalog, which allows people to discover that data. Let me give you a couple of examples of where we don't actually host data. And that are very large data sets that are people. We don't host either HRS, the Health and Retirement Survey here, or the panel study of income dynamics. Nevertheless, if you come to ICPSR and search for them, you do find them, and we can tell you about those data. So if you're searching for topics, if you're searching something, what data would be good to study poverty in the United States, or what data would be good for looking at caregiving of the elderly, both of those studies have information on that. We can help you find that and then direct you to the source. It's kind of like the old days in the library, where if you went to a library, the card catalog often had entries for things that were available at other libraries.
Sorry, went to hit the mute button and everything disappeared for a second. It's the end of the day. All right, we have another question here. Can DSDR help with creating data management and sharing plans?
Yes, we can. We just had a discussion today with NICHD. They're going to be giving us a link to something to help guide people. Their suggestion is that you take that guide and you make bullet points in your proposal, and you follow that in terms of the plan. I'll also say that ICPSR has extensive web pages. I say extensive, we have several web pages on data management plans already. So if your question is about data management plans in general, we do have a lot up already, and we'd be glad to confer with you and talk over the issues. And then with the new NIH sharing requirement coming up, we're going to be making more information available to help with that. So yes, and we're always here to answer questions. But that is, don't be afraid to reach out.
I think that's one of the biggest benefits about everybody at ICPSR and DSDR and land of the acronyms is that everybody is so helpful and friendly, and there is no stupid question. So speaking of questions, we have another one here that is, what is the newest study you've made available? just released. Okay, so this is sorry,
not
you're laughing, and I'm like, what did I do? I asked the question.
No, it's not necessarily the newest study, but it certainly is the one that I want to talk about, which is NCHAT, which is the National Couples, which just came out this summer. That Claire Camp-Dushin and Wendy Manning are the PIs on it. It's a truly, I don't want to say wonderful data set, but a data set that has a lot of potential. And Claire and Wendy took great strides to design a sample that enabled them to include populations that weren't usually studied. And they made great effort to have a racially and ethnically diverse sample, and also a sample that included different gender identifications and different sexual orientations. But it's a study about relationships and couples. So it really is a data set that goes beyond just your standard study. At the same time that they did this, the study is also representative. So the sample is a really nice piece of work that we're particularly proud to be able to provide access to.
Didn't they just win that award? I'm blanking on it. Maybe somebody will know.
The Piper Simmons Award.
Yes, that one. Thank you.
The Piper Simmons. So this is the Piper Simmons Award is awarded annually. This is the first year to a depositor that exemplifies data that are very useful. Now, what's shouting out to Claire and Wendy again, is that they understood this and very much worked with us as a partnership as to how we can make these data available. And understanding that we're trying to protect human subjects on the same page, how can we make these things happen? So that's really important. We view working with our depositors as a partnership, that you're not just giving us your data and saying, I'm walking away from it. We view the data, it's your data, and that what we're trying to do is provide access to that data and facilitate research. And just keep in mind, our main goal, and this is kind of is not so much to provide data, it is to provide data. It's to facilitate research. We're trying to advance science. We're trying to enable people to address research questions.
Excellent. And that might be a good place to stop because I love it. I feel like that's one of the big things with ICPSR and DSDR is that we make the research available and then people can take that and they can reuse it to build upon it, and then it just snowballs and we're just making our world a better place.
That's correct. And it's the idea that research builds on research, and a lot of things that we've been doing from the bibliography to letting people know what's previously been done and enabling people to replicate research and build on that previous research. Incredibly important. And also to one of our missions, and this is to try and get data that cover populations that people want to look at. One of the biggest growth areas, at least in DSDR, has been people looking not for a main population, but a subpopulation. I want to look at First Nations people. I want to look at gay people. I want to look at brown people. I want to look at different people. I want to be in a position to be able to address some specific questions. And that's one of the things that we're really conscious of in trying to enable people to be able to find those kinds of data.
Well, thank you so much, John. I really appreciate this, and I'm sure that our attendees did as well. If anybody has any questions that come about after the session is closed, feel free to reach out. I know that John and his whole team would love to hear from you.
We would, and thank you very much for attending. Mm-hmm. And I hope you enjoyed a little bit of information with a little bit of comedy, but it is true that ICPSR is in some sense really a big pile of data. And I know that sounds kind of funny, but our job is to make sense of that big pile.
Absolutely. Well said. And I actually loved the big pile of data. It was fabulous. I laughed out loud. So, all right. Well, everybody have a nice afternoon. We will see you tomorrow at the data fair or at the exhibit hall later on. Yeah. Thank you very much.